Well, hello there. My name is Jon Meyer, and I'm excited to announce the winner of the Jon Meyer scoring competition. Last month, I challenged all of you to score a video that I put together from footage that I shot while on vacation in Alaska a few years ago. I took some random footage of what one of you reminded me was the Dawes Glacier in Alaska. I wrote a story as if it was part of a larger documentary, and then I made my dramatic voice acting debut, which in hindsight, not that bad. And then I added some sound effects that tied all together, ocean sounds and the helicopter sound as it flew away. Unfortunately for all of you, I made it very difficult for you to know what I wanted this video to sound like. I left it up to you to help me figure out what I want to hear. I know that made the project more difficult, possibly frustrating, but in my time pitching music for different projects, I found that I often have very little information in the brief as to what the director or editor or music supervisor wants, and I have to try to give them what I think the project needs, and this was one of those situations. And it's kind of nice being on this side of the process where I'm the one who gets to be impressed by your work. There were over 158 entries, and I found the process of narrowing that down to 5 very, very difficult. I spent all day yesterday. For some reason, I waited until yesterday to listen to all of them, so I spent the entire day at a coffee shop with headphones on, going through them one by one. My goal yesterday was to whittle it down to 5 finalists and a winner, and I did that, and the 5 finalists will receive a copy of the Meyer Felt contact instrument that I released last month at my first commercial release. If you have already bought that and you're one of the finalists, I will send you my next instrument, which has a to-be-determined release date, but I'll make sure that you get that before everybody else. The winner will receive this flute, built by my brother-in-law's father, Vernon Agold, who also made this flute, which I used for the flute and violin sample, which later became Spitfire Labs' Arctic Swells. And as I mentioned in the rules and prizes section on my website, I will ship it anywhere in the world as long as it doesn't cost more than $200 to ship. And if it does cost more than that, I will send the winner a cash prize of $100. Before I get to announcing the finalists and the winners, there were a few things that I jotted down while I was spending the day listening to all of these entries, and I want to share those with you now. These thoughts are somewhat random, so stay with me, but the first thing that I wrote down is that I recognize that what might be best for the film in a real situation may not be the best thing for a contest. You know, the real thing might have simply required a one note held out for a long period of time, a nice drone or a nice pad. That might have communicated everything that needed to be communicated. But for this situation, what I was looking for, and I purposefully gave you a lot of space so you could work some nice moments in between the dialogue. And the dialogue was very dramatic and very quiet. Certain types of music work better with that type of delivery than others. And also there was a section at the end where there was some more space to do creative things. So basically I was looking for someone to take what they were given and the constraints that they were giving and write a compelling piece within those restraints. The second thought on my list was that although I loved hearing my sounds or sounds from Piano Book, you know, I could hear it and I could recognize it. What I really found most interesting were those of you that did creative things to the sound or tricked them up in a way or ran them through different gates or whatever to just take the sound and make it your own. That is where I got excited. It never fails that when I decide to make one of these videos, they mow the lawn next door. And so I'm going to fight my way through it, even though you're probably going to hear a weed eater in the background. There were a handful of situations where I really liked the track, but the mix was way off and the music was way too loud over the vocals. And I know this wasn't a mixing competition. However, we live in a day and age where the word demo or sending messages along with your video saying, well, this will actually sound like this, I feel like those days have passed. When I first got into this business in the songwriting production world, demos were a thing, and you knew to listen to a demo, and it wasn't done, but it would give you the idea. Now we have access to all the tools, and we have access to all the instruction we need to learn how to use the tools. But if I send something that's not quite done, and someone else sends something that's just as good, but is done and sounds clear, and the mix is right, and the dialogue is out front, but the music sounds loud and clear, that person's probably going to win 9 times out of 10, especially in a contest situation like this, where I don't really have the time to send it back to you and say, can you make some revisions? He's singing while he's mowing. Can you hear that? He's singing louder than the lawnmower. All right, next thought. As much as I love the sounds that I've made, the prototypes, and the sounds from Piano Book, I think it's important to note that many of these are not one-size-fits-all sounds. Like it may be a violin, or it may be a piano or whatever, but they are limited in what they can do, and that's not a bad thing. You can't just take a piano sound, say it's a felt piano, and write the same thing that you would on a grand piano. You have to figure out what it is you can do. And there are some sounds that work good as textures or in long drawn out sounds, but if you try to play those like you would tell a person to play a part, sometimes that's lacking, and it's obvious that you're trying to make it play a part that it's not capable of doing well. And this is a situation where you can't hire another person. That would break the rules, and there'd be no reason to do that. So you're stuck working with the tools, and that was part of the challenge. How can you take these tools and make something special? And that leads me to my last thought, and then we'll get to the winners. But there is an art to taking samples and sounds that were recorded in different environments all over the planet, different rooms, different microphones, different levels of quality. There's an art to taking those and making them work together. You have to use reverbs and EQs and compression and saturation. Those are all tools that we have in our disposal to make them work together. There were quite a few times where I heard a track and thought, this is really nice, but they don't quite sound cohesive. They don't sound like the time was taken to make those work together. And perhaps it's just experience and skill, and that's fine if it is. I want you to know today that that's something that you need to work towards, and information that you need to seek out, tutorials you need to find online to help you figure out how to make things work together when they were not recorded in the same space. The first finalist, in no particular order, is Jim Sanger. I do not know Jim, but he has been very encouraging to me since I started this channel, always saying very nice, thoughtful things. I did not let that sway me at all. He wrote a beautiful piece. The sounds Jim used were the Antiquarian Echo, Basic, and the piano book Flute and Violin, and Scary Flottando Violin. One of my favorite things about this track is it's super simple, and it does exactly what it needs to do, and here it is. I had been drifting for days. After a while, I lost count. I've lived here my whole life. I've seen a lot of people go out on the water. When they go missing, they usually don't come back. Back to the thought that I shared earlier is that he let the sounds do what the sounds are going to do. And you can hear the textures, and you can hear the kind of subtle changes in the strings, and then a nice uplifting shift, but also with some trepidation in his chord choices. I thought it was great. One of the difficulties I imagine you all faced in this project was knowing what to do when the boat came. You know, some would say, make a dramatic change right there. Others would say, no, let the sound of the waves and let the sound of the helicopter do its thing. And there are a lot of different ways that you could take that. I guarantee if we turned on Discovery Channel today, we would find some shows and some composers that would hit all those moments, and some that would let things kind of evolve slower and not so obvious. Lots of different approaches. I really like Jim's. Our next finalist is C.J. Thomas. C.J. used the Meyer-Felt, Steinway, Basic, Antiquarian Echo, Meyer Choir, Flute Violin, and for piano book, Soft String Spurs, Christian Henson's Native Flute, Soft String Spur, and for I had been drifting for days. After a while, I lost count. I've lived here my whole life. I've seen a lot of people go out on the water. When they go missing, they usually don't come back. Beautiful work, CJ. I love the subtle movement in the piano. It didn't get in the way of the dialogue, the strings over top, and the nice mood shift when the boat comes in. And then most of you really hit that ending as if something else is about to happen. So there was a nice change there when it shows the mountains in the end. Next we have Carl Utbolt, and Carl used the Meyerfeld basic, handbells, gentle vibes, lo-fi drums, soft drums, flute and violin, and the antiquarian echo. I had been drifting for days. After a while, I lost count. I've lived here my whole life. I've seen a lot of people go out on the water. When they go missing, they usually don't come back. Great job of shifting the energy there when the boat came in. And I liked how the piano in the beginning was very bold. It was very noticeable, but it still did not get in the way of the dialogue. And I liked how the pads and strings evolved and moved around. So, sometimes you could hear them, sometimes you couldn't, and new ones would come in. And I think that was a great way to keep it from being just here's a sound. Our next finalist is Alex Huynh, Huynh. And he used the Kwai-Felt piano, antiquarian echo, the Meyer choir, and from piano book, the pointillism guitar, classical guitar, soundscape guitar, Dan Bao, cello choir, plucked harmonics cello, pont piz, arc string textures, serendipity, ocean harp swells, Tibetan bows, how do you say it? Uillean pipes? I'm not saying it right. And skimmer metal. That's a lot. I learned to get nervous when I saw a long list of sounds. I was like, how are all these going to fit? But I think Alex did a great job. I had been drifting for days. After a while, I lost count. I've lived here my whole life. I've seen a lot of people go out on the water. When they go missing, they usually don't come back. Nice build there at the end. He took a much more subtle approach throughout, not a big change when the boat came in. But I think what I liked so much about it is it was obviously moving, but I couldn't quite tell what was moving the track. All those instruments playing underneath and these rhythms, and then certain little ear candy would pop up here and there. But it just had a nice feel, and it put me in a place when I was watching this. That's what's so special about this, is that you all wrote in such different ways, and watching the same video over and over again always felt different because of the musical choices that you made. Our last finalist, Jeff Harden. He used the Meyerfeld Steinway Grand, antiquarian echo, the Meyer choir, the Meyer wind chimes, drum machine, that would be the fun machine, I think. Possibly could have been the SB202, but I didn't share those. Or did I? I can't remember. Basic, Arctic Swells, and from piano book, the Northern Film Orchestra, oboe and flute, the Northern Film Orchestra string swells, DK Isolation by the great Dan King, and Vibutane by Chris Lodi. I had been drifting for days. After a while, I lost count. I've lived here my whole life. I've seen a lot of people go out on the water. When they go missing, they usually don't come back. You can watch this video to see the stuff at the end, but I tried not to let that sway me, although it was very cool. I like the anticipation building, the second half of it. I like the use of the Meyer choir, talking about the people that have not made it out. It's almost kind of spooky, and it's all the voices, maybe those people that didn't make it back. I feel like he did a great job with that, so well done, Jeff. And now for the winner of the first and perhaps only Jon Meyer scoring competition, Girish Harish. Girish used the Antiquarian Echo, Fun Machine Rhythm, Kawaii Felt Piano, Soft Drums, Gentle Vibes, Wind Chimes, Pad, Handbells, Basic, Fun Machine Organ, Steinway, Grand, the Meyer Choir, and from Piano Book, Ibanez Dreams, SSS Swells, and Rob's Coffee Can. And here's his entry. I had been drifting for days. After a while, I lost count. I've lived here my whole life. I've seen a lot of people go out on the water. When they go missing, they usually don't come back. I loved it. The energy throughout, it had movement and motion, lots of different sounds, but didn't take away from the dialogue, had a nice build, and was very interesting to listen to throughout. I'd love to hear what he could do with this entire movie if I make it one day. Probably not. After I made the decision that Girish was the winner, I was watching this video again, and then autoplay took me to another video on his channel, and I want you all to go to Girish Harish's, I hope I'm saying that right, channel. It's excellent, and he's got a really cool voice, much better than mine for sure.
This is Girish Harish, and I am a music producer based out of Bangalore.
So congratulations to Girish. Thanks to all of you for taking the time and energy to make this so incredible. I mean, hearing these sounds that I made in here, in this room, or maybe that room over there, being used all over the world is truly remarkable. I hope you enjoyed this. I know I certainly did, and I'll be back very soon with another video for you. Until then, take care.